Let's talk about the greatest food movie scenes of all time. When I came up with the idea for this live stream, what I had in mind was to talk about kind of the most profound movie scenes that involve food that I could think of. Now, this is not supposed to be an exhaustive list. In fact, I don't have any notes. I was going to make notes and then I thought, let's just roll with it and let's see where we get in terms of this. If this is very popular, we'll come back and we'll do a part two. How about that? I've been asking on social media and getting a little bit of ideas in terms of, things that there are. And if you've clicked into this, you saw the thumbnail. So let's start there. That thumbnail is from Goodfellas. It's the scene in prison where they're cooking the Italian dinner. They've had people sneaking in ingredients for them, and you can see they're living like kings. And he's slicing the garlic with the razor blade. Now, I'm not going to have many visual aids throughout this, so if that was something that you were looking forward to, just want to get that out up front. I don't navigate the reused content thing, so I don't have any footage to show on any of this stuff. So we're gonna literally be talking about it because this also is an audio experience on the podcast as well. Looks like we have James in the house who said he'd be here. So James, nice to see you here. And I'll get to your comment after I get through Goodfellas. So a lot of people think that's the most iconic food scene of all time, cutting the garlic so thin that it melts into the sauce. Me personally, I don't even think that's the best food scene in Goodfellas. So I think it's a remarkable scene. I love the way it's shot. I mean, Goodfellas is a beautiful movie. But the best food scene in Goodfellas to me is after the whole go get your shine box thing, and they go to Robert De Niro's character's mother's house, and it's the middle of the night and she's cooking them a meal, and they're eating around the thing, and Joe Pesci's asking if he can borrow the knife because he needs a knife and all that stuff. But the best part of that scene is, I don't know what she makes for them, maybe chicken cutlets or whatever it is, but Robert De Niro takes the bottle of ketchup, and it's the Heinz bottle, the glass bottle with kind of the hexagonal neck. He turns it over and he literally flips it and rotates it between his hands to get it out. That to me is an amazing food scene. Now, when I talk about food scenes, I even tried to Google it, and I came up with something weird here, guys. This is not the spirit of what we're trying to do here tonight. So what I did was Google greatest food movie scenes, and here's what it came up with. Breakfast at Tiffany's, never saw it. Ratatouille, I saw it, but I wouldn't call that really a food scene. It's a cartoon. Marie Antoinette, never saw it. The 100-Foot Journey, never saw it. Julie and Julia, boring. Big Night, we got to talk about Big Night. Tampopo, I've never seen that. Babette's Feast, never saw that. So the spirit of this is not to go with the Google popular things. I want to talk about food scenes like, and now I'm drawing a blank. Like James had when he left a comment on the YouTube community post, and he said, from the movie Men at Work 1990, the scene which spawned the famous food quote, "Never mess with another man fries." Not the exact quote from the movie, but it is where it originated and more from. And kind words about looking forward to the stream. I remember that scene, and that must have been Emilio Estevez who says that line, because for some reason, I mean, I haven't seen Men at Work now probably in 30 years. But if I'm going to talk about an Emilio Estevez scene that's a profound food scene, I guess food or drink, let's call it, in the movie, which was right around the time of Men at Work, National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, where the whole plot is they're trying to take down a crooked Girl Scout cookie ring. He makes the drink where he mixes Jack Daniels with chocolate syrup and puts a whole bunch of stuff in there and takes a sip. That's probably the best food scene in that movie. One of the most epic food scenes of all time, if we're going to talk about comedy movies from the 80s, 90s, is from a movie called European Vacation. Now, there's a bunch of food scenes in European Vacation. There's kind of a running in joke about Audrey's boyfriend, Jack, who is, according to her, a well-endowed individual. And when they're in Germany and she is picking up bratwurst. She says, "God, I miss Jack." So there's a bunch of stuff regarding Jack in that. Um, but the best scene, and there's also kind of a like a I guess fat shaming is the way to put it. Um, that character seems to be obsessed with their weight, for the purpose of being fit for Jack, who is played by Billy Zabka, the guy from Cobra Kai, Karate Kid. And he's essentially playing his character from Karate Kid. I think that's the same character he played in most of the movies. He played it in that. He played it in Just One of the Guys. Um, but there's the one scene where Jack breaks up with her in a letter. He doesn't really break up with her. He just says he's seeing other girls. And she's like, "Oh, pass me the croissants and the butter and the jelly." That's a good food scene. But the food scene when they're daydreaming on the plane, not daydreaming, I think they're dreaming. Um, she has this dream about how there's a smorgasbord coming in and they keep bringing food, and she's trying to eat all the food at the rate at which they're bringing it out. It just keeps coming faster and faster. And then by the end of it, she's actually like blowing up. Her buttons pop off the shirt, and she's essentially a balloon. That's a funny food scene. And now another food scene. I got a little visual aid for this one. I forgot to actually take out the accessories, but guess the movie. Pulp Fiction, Big Kahuna Burger. You can't go wrong with a Samuel L. Jackson flick. Big Kahuna Burger and Pulp Fiction. That there's quite a bit to talk about in Pulp Fiction, actually. There's the Big Kahuna Burger, which may or may not contribute to the divine intervention, which saves Jules Winfield's life. There's a lot of theories on YouTube, and you can get sucked in. I get sucked in all the time into these rabbit holes of like film analysis and stuff. But him biting the Big Kahuna Burger and taking a sip of the beverage, that's an epic food scene, number one. But that kind of sets off the domino effect of him, the bullets going around him and all that other stuff. There's also the Jackrabbit Slim scene from that film, where there's the $5 milkshake, where John Travolta's character says, "I got to see what a $5 milkshake tastes like," and he gets the $5 milkshake. Speaking of John Travolta, we of course have to talk about Saturday Night Fever, because that is probably one of the most epic food scenes of all time. When at the beginning of the movie, the Bee Gees' "Staying Alive" is playing, and he goes up to Lenny's Pizza on 86th Street in Brooklyn, which consequently, we actually lived on 85th Street within walking distance to that when I was very young. I don't know that we ever went to Lenny's Pizza, actually. I don't remember my parents taking me there, but we could have any day. He walks up to the counter and say, "Hey, now I'm blanking on his name in the movie. What was his name in the movie? Tony Manero. Hey, Tony, 2 slices or 3?" And then he says 2. He proceeds to take the 2 slices, stack them on top of each other, and eat them as a stack of a slice. It's funny because there's actually a place in Little Italy called Manero's Pizza that specializes in the stacked slice. My brother lives in New York City and doesn't want to go there. I don't understand it. Tom, you got to go. You got to go to Manero's Pizzeria and do the double stack slice. Yep, eating the pizza and walking. And I have to correct you though, James. It's not a walk, it's a strut. And the reason why I know it's a strut is because they essentially, at the end of the second movie, Staying Alive, which is a sequel to Saturday Night Fever, at the very end, he does the strut. He actually says, "I want to strut." So they redo that scene without the pizza. So that's another epic food scene in movies. Where am I at now? Let's talk about the big night. The big night is definitely one of the ones that everybody's going to talk about being in terms of epic food. And this is kind of what sparked this topic in me. Making food content is actually pretty difficult. And I'm not here to complain about it. I'm just talking a little bit about the technical challenges. When you have something that somebody else played it up without knowledge that they were doing it for a camera, and you're, doing all that and collecting it and trying to get footage, trying to make it look delicious, trying to make it something that somebody would want to click on, um, that's kind of a challenge. So um, I can imagine making this movie The Big Night, where they have this epic scene that's like almost 25-30 minutes long, that's essentially people just reacting to the food coming out of the kitchen, where the two Italian brothers, they open up their restaurant and they pulled out all the stops in the movie because they had a guest coming, who was going to review the food at the restaurant, and they wanted to make sure it all came out really well. You see all the Italian American goodies coming out. At the very end, they pull out a special dish called timpano, which is, like almost like a lasagna, like a special lasagna that has homemade pasta kind of lining the outside, some fillings, there's some hard-boiled eggs, there's some meatballs, sausages, all different types of things in there. And then you cut into it, and it has this beautiful cross section that when you plate it, and when they bring the timpano, it's a humongous scene. That's one of those things where it's like, absolutely, I would say, in terms of most important food movie scenes, that probably is, I would say, at least a top 5, if not the most important food movie scene that there is. And I love the Big Night also because it's about two brothers who are Italian American, or they're Italian immigrants, trying to make it in America. And it's very much, there's a lot of, I mean, it's not the story of my family, but, my dad and my uncle did own a business together. And, I did get to see a lot of the same type of infighting that you see in that film there. It's kind of a fun movie for me. I'm scrolling through, I have a thing here that actually is from this website Time Out, which I never heard of before, but it ranked high in search. And it's the 52 best food on film moments of all time. I'm going to see if that jogs my memory at all. Of course, if we're going to talk about kind of independent films of the 90s, one of the ones that we have to talk about is Good Will Hunting. Now there's not there's the apples. That's not really a food scene, but I think it's a fun scene when he's Matt Damon and Minnie Driver are they're having a fun little day out, and they go to the candy shop, and he talks about it. He calls them caramels. I think that's kind of a fun food movie scene. While we're talking about kind of epic greatest of all time movies, there's The Godfather. I mean, there's a couple food scenes in The Godfather. Of course, the most profound one, Clemenza, is going to have your food scenes no matter what. Godfather 2, he's eating the pasta while they're talking with his mouth full. That's something that, as an Italian American, we got to see quite a lot. But when Clemenza is teaching him how to make the tomato sauce, that's another one that's kind of profound. And also the take the cannoli, leave the gun thing. The $5 shake. Cool Hand Luke, I've never seen. Let's see here. The double stacked slice of pizza. They keep saying this Julie and Julia, which I saw it, but I thought it was a snooze. Here we go. Here's one. When I show you the picture, The Great Outdoors, the old 96er. And it's funny that I didn't think of that one right now, because I did a sous vide steak the other night. And when I put it out on the cutting board, it looked exactly like the old 96er from there. And I texted my brother. I said, remember when I made the old 96er? And I sent him the picture. That was funny. That was where, if he could finish the steak, everybody ate for free. And he finished the steak, but there were still the trimmings around the outside, and they made him finish that as well. That's an epic food movie scene. Rocky, the raw eggs. I mean, that's got to get an honorable mention, just for being shocking. But honestly, that's not really that. I don't know. I don't think that's a big thing. Here's one that kind of it's in our hearts, but it's kind of a little tainted at the moment because of the racial undertones of the last scene of this movie. But they have this whole turkey planned, and it's kind of, he looks forward to it all year long. They pull the turkey out of the oven, and in the ruckus of everything, the Bupkis's dogs knock the turkey off, and they ravage the turkey and they end up having to go out for Chinese food and they have the duck. Um, and the interesting thing about that scene is actually they did that on one take when the duck came out, the actors weren't told that was going to happen. So you could actually see their legitimate reactions when that happens in the film. Kind of a fun little fact. All right, we'll talk about it. And again, this is in no order. And I like this because it's a little bit laid back. Right now, I'm focused on talking, but I'm also trying to think a little bit too. But we could talk about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, about how there's the scene with the bugs. I mean, that is a food movie scene, and it's one of those ones where it didn't sit well with me then because it was kind of a lot of shock humor, or like it was like obviously meant to shock, but also as a young kid I picked up on the fact that you know they were kind of poking fun at a different culture and what that culture maybe that culture does eat bugs and stuff like that. Then they had like the monkey brains, like in the, like I mean that to me just it was edgy even at the time. I was maybe 10 years old when that came out. Maybe I was actually probably younger than that actually. Trying to jog my memory. I actually have all my DVD collection right here. I really can't believe that I totally blanked out. I really can't. Ah, okay. Yeah. Early on the channel, if you haven't, so I started posting here in late 2018. In 2019, one of the first videos that I posted to the channel here was a recreation of Rodney Dangerfield's hors d'oeuvre sandwich. He learned it in Europe. So you can go back and you can actually dig that video up. If you look up Rodney Dangerfield and Jerry Papandrea, it'll definitely come up. I've done reactions to it. I've re-edited it down into shorts as well. But that's one. So if you didn't see the movie Back to School, his wife throws this soiree at their house, and he obviously is a fish out of water. Even in his own house, he can't get a beer at his own house. They only have a cocktail and champagne, so he goes and gets a Miller Lite out of the refrigerator. Or yeah, it's a Miller Lite. And then he goes over to the table, and at the table they have loaves of Italian bread, they have deviled eggs, they have what looks like spanakopita, and they have Swedish meatballs. So he literally opens up the piece of bread and just puts everything that's in those little platters into the bread. He makes somebody hold the sandwich, so he cuts it and he tells them, "I learned this in Europe." And then he cuts the sandwich and he's eating the sandwich as he's talking. His wife's trying to introduce him to one of her friends, and he's being very non-flattering on purpose because that's kind of what Rodney Dangerfield is good at, being kind of awkward. Um, and that's another really great food movie scene. I was hoping for this to be a lot more interactive. Um, so I was going to riff off of you guys. And I guess one that we have to talk about for sure is When Harry Met Sally in the diner scene. Not exactly a food scene, but it's food adjacent because they're eating in the diner, and she kind of acts out her whatever you want to call it. She gets excited, and then the woman tells her, "I'll have what." The woman tells the waiter or waitress, "I'll have what she's having." Come on, guys, leave me some of yours. I'm looking up. Oh, Groundhog Day. I mean, there's a lot of great scenes in Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray literally takes the cake and smushes it into his face in one bite. Um, James in the house. Food fight from Stand By Me. What was the food fight? When did they have a food fight? Oh, you know what? So Dom is in the house. Hook. Somebody on Instagram left me a comment, and I don't know how to go back and find that comment. I don't remember. I've been meaning to rewatch the movie Hook for the longest time. I don't remember the scene, so I can't talk about it. But I'm gonna rewatch it, and maybe in the part two to this, we'll do that. The pie eating contest, yeah, where Lardass is eating the blueberry pies, and he starts off the contest with the castor oil, and then chaos ensues. Right? I guess that's how we could put it. It's funny when you Google like best food movie scenes. They keep giving the same ones. It's kind of boring. Kind of boring. I mean, kind of this isn't film, but it's television. I guess The Sopranos is, as film as you can get for a television show. But anytime Tony Soprano is eating the food, you can hear the fork. He's stabbing at the pasta. That to me is iconic. I think that is one of the greatest things. And James, this is one of those things. It keeps coming up in the Google search, and I remember seeing Breakfast at Tiffany's. I don't remember there being a food scene either, but it's been a long time since I have seen that movie. Um, yeah, maybe I should have made notes. You're 20 minutes in, 21 minutes in, and watching me struggle on what I'm talking about here because I was completely not at all prepared. And I had extra time. I was going to do this stream Friday night, and I didn't. I postponed it until today, and I said I'm going to make some notes on the things that come to my head. And I'm telling you, what as I was going through the weekend, hundreds of things came in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I'll talk about that. Yeah, I'll talk about that. And now we're here, and I'm not talking about it. You know what I mean? I'm looking at my DVD collection right now just to see if there's anything that I could find. Airheads, Airheads, when he's eating the burrito and they have the guns that are they're water guns, but he's got pepper spray in them. He uses the pepper spray to actually season the burrito. I think that's an epic scene. The big ones are European Vacation for sure. That probably is one of the most important food scenes in my life. Um, and Encino Man, yeah, when they're in the 7-Eleven or the convenience store, whatever it's supposed to be, and he wheezes the juice. When and by that he puts his mouth. Pauly Shore does it first. Um, Puts his mouth underneath the where the icy comes out or Slurpee, and oh, okay. Dom's helping me out here. Apartment Gaming. It's his new channel, by the way. If you, oh, I'm gonna skip the ads for you guys. There's lots of ways you could support. Ads are definitely one of the ones that is a passive way to, watch the ads if they come up. Anyway, European Vacation is number one. We talked about European Vacation, but Vegas Vacation, the buffet. So in Vegas Vacation, there's a point where they go to the off Vegas, the off strip place for a buffet, and Eddie's loading up on food, and there's one where he's like, "I'm gonna have some spaghetti bolognas," and there's like a purple or like really really bright blue spaghetti and a really really yellow spaghetti, and he's like, "I'll have some of the yellow." I think that's a really good food scene for sure. I used to have this database where I would keep my DVD collection completely online so I can actually access it, but it's gone. It was called something like DVD aficionado or something like that. And it's completely gone now. Trading Places. In the movie Trading Places, there is I talked about the great outdoors already. But in the movie Trading Places, there's the scene where Winthorpe is on a tear. He's dressed up as Santa. He's trying to ruin the holiday party, and he's loading up his Santa costume with stuff from the company party. And then he's on the bus and he's eating ham through he's eating the ham through the Santa thing. So there's that. Return of the Dragon, Bruce Lee. Here's a really good one. Um, so it takes place in Italy, and he comes from Hong Kong, where he's there to essentially scare away some thugs that are trying to bully a Chinese restaurant. There's a scene that he's staying with the young lady, and she cooks a beautiful breakfast for him or lunch or whatever it was, and he does his fighting routine out on the balcony, and you get to see his muscles and he's flexing and everything, and he comes inside and he sees this feast in front of him and he's eating it and he's like, yeah, it's all right. And the girl clearly was there, and she's trying to take pride in making this guy a meal, and he tells her, this is better in Hong Kong. I think the implication is he thought that it was the restaurant food, and there's that, and there's also the Chinese spare rib scene in Return of the Dragon. um Conehead's Subway. Now that's funny, where they slurp the sandwich down really quick, but the better Subway scene is in Happy Gilmore, when he becomes a sponsor for Subway, and he swings the sub into the kid's mouth. That's definitely an epic food movie scene. And I'm again blanking. See, if these live streams got better attendance, we'd have more people. I mean, between James and Dom, we've got a lot of people throwing me bones. I talked about the big night already. That one to me was a quick one to talk about, just because it's kind of a low hanging fruit for food. I mean, that's going to be on everybody's list. And I was trying to make this something that wasn't like the normal stuff that that people always see. Here's a ranking of the most iconic food movies in history. So I'm going to actually pull this up. Oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, that's a good one. After that long service, there's a long shot where Stanley Tucci, who for some reason in 2024 has a lot of authority in the food travel space, which I don't understand. But he cooks the scrambled eggs at the end, which I think is a little bonding moment after the big night. Let's talk about this list, which I just pulled up. It is from Spoon University. I didn't know Spoon was a university. A ranking of the most iconic food moments in movie history. So these are supposed to be iconic. Chronicles of Narnia. I never saw it, actually. I've never seen the Chronicles of Narnia. Matilda, chocolate cake, never seen that. Paddington. I mean, guys, we're not exactly iconic here yet. Julie and Julia. I mean, this one is going to be on a lot of people's lists as well. Julie and Julia was one of those beloved films that came out, what was it, 13, 14 years ago? Actually, maybe longer. When did that come out? I mean, it's got to be within the last 15, 16 years. That's going to be on everybody's list as well. Princess Diaries, Hook. The one thing that's coming out of the stream, I got to rewatch Hook. It's been too long, way too long. Uncle Buck, the giant pancake from Uncle Buck. How could I forget about that? I mean, that's pretty much all you can say about it, right? Fatso, Dom DeLuise, the Chinese food. Yeah, I mean, in Fatso, there's a lot of good scenes, and that's another one that I haven't seen in a long time either. Oh, here's like in the same vein as Fatso and Back to School, Easy Money. There's a scene where he's on the diet, and he's got little like bites of vegetables, and he's got vitamins that his wife gives him. and he's making believe he's eating it, and he goes, they're not even carrots. It was a pill. He's like, I'm tired of my carrots. You want to have some? And he tries to give it to her. That's a funny scene. Okay, we're getting somewhere on this list here. Elf. There's where he gets spaghetti and he puts a whole bunch of candy on it. Pop Tarts, maple syrup. The Princess and the Frog. Harry Potter. I mean, you can tell that this was populated by somebody born in the 90s or 2000s. Ratatouille, Great Gatsby, which I've never actually seen. I actually been meaning to watch that. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Let's see what they say here. Audrey Hepburn created a magical moment eating that croissant and sipping on her coffee. I mean, okay. So this is what we're looking at here. I don't remember that being that long of a scene. I mean, I literally think that there's just maybe a couple seconds of her holding a cup of coffee and with the croissant. I don't think it's much more than that. Lady and the Tramp, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You know, all right, let's talk about Willy Wonka. I always liked the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think Gene Wilder was one of those people that, as growing up, I was conditioned. He was a funny guy. He was a very good actor, and that was one of those movies where it's like, okay, this is weird. Like the source material was weird. I don't really consider it a food movie, and like when thinking about food stuff, like it doesn't even. It's not even at the front of my mind. Maybe because it's supposed to be off-putting. I don't know. That's just me. Let's see what else I can come up with here. And I'll dismiss this in a minute or two. Thrillist. They got to have some, right? Scrolling through. Nope. There's are at all noteworthy. Here we go. The 21 most awkward dinner scenes in film. Lars and the Real Girl, Dinner for Schmucks, Meet the Parents. I mean, there's no food in these. Wedding Crashers. Yeah, these are just awkward scenes. All right, that's not getting us anywhere. What's going to happen, guys? I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to get off the stream and I'm going to remember 1,000 other things. And maybe down the line, we'll do a part 2 to this. Thank you so much, James and Dom, for sticking around and being in the live chat. Really appreciate you guys. And if you're watching the replay and you got this far, you are a trooper. But thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.